Welcome. So in this lesson, we're going to use simultaneous equations in context. So that means we're going to use simultaneous equations to solve word problems. Now that will involve creating some equations that we need to solve a problem. So resource checklist, make sure you've got your calculator. So just some visual cues as we're going through this PowerPoint, the pen symbol. So our what for this lesson is that we're going to create pairs of simultaneous equations to solve problems and then find the solution to these simultaneous equations to then solve the problem. So once again, we're going to have really clear communication. So it means we're going to name our variable something appropriate. We're not going to call our variables duck or a symbol. We're going to use appropriate variable naming. And we're going to have really good communication by clearly stating what method we're doing, how we're solving a problem, and what our answers are. So that's saying what the solution is. And you can use simultaneous equations to solve many everyday problems, as well as many complex mathematical problems. So simultaneous equations are actually used in computer modeling of a system of gas emission or virus spreading, or in particular the weather. The weather is one that really uses simultaneous equations to calculate, and it's quite interesting. So our first problem. Ashley received better results for his mathematics test than for his English test. If the sum of the two marks is 164 and the difference is 22, calculate the mark he received for each subject. So we're going to use simultaneous equations to solve this problem. The first thing that we have to do when we're using simultaneous equations is very clearly name the variables. So in our problem, if we're dealing with mathematics and English, I'd assume you'd use the variable m for mathematics and the variable e for English. That makes the most sense to me. And we're going to label each equation. So we're going to call it one equation 1, one equation 2. Doesn't matter which one's which, as long as you're consistent with each time you use those equations. And if we're using the elimination method and we get a third equation, we're properly labeling those equations. And then we're going to decide if we're going to use that substitution rule or the elimination rule. So both will actually work. So my advice is to use whichever is easier. Or if one looks like really easy for elimination, do that one for elimination. If one looks really easy for substitution, use substitution. So you're going to have to end up using both rules. So whichever one seems easier for the problem. Okay, so we're going to solve this problem, this word problem about Ashley's mark using simultaneous equations. So up here, I've declared what my variables are. So mathematics, I'm using an M. In English, I'm using an E. I can use X and Y, I could use T and H. As long as I'm stating it here, it doesn't really matter. So here are my two equations over here. The sum of the two marks is 164, and the difference of the two marks is 22. So that's how I got these two equations, and you can see I've labeled them equation 1 and equation 2. So straight away looking at that, I can see that these e's have the same coefficient and a different sign. So I'm going to use the elimination method to solve this one. You can use any method you want. You could even graph these if you really wanted to using x's and y's, but I'm just going to use the elimination method. So I'm adding equation 1 to equation 2. So I've written down equation 1, I've written down plus, and I've written down equation 2. So vertical sums, I've eliminated the e. So now I can solve for m, so that's what I've started doing here. So I've got my answer for m. M is 93. So pretty good. So now I'm going to sub. I'm going to substitute that number back into equation 1. So I'm just evaluating here. Everywhere I've seen an m, I'm now writing 93. And once I do this sum, I know that. So E is 71. So am I done? No, I'm not done yet. Of course I'm not done yet. This was a word problem, so I need to answer in words. So that's what I'm going to do now. So this is my word answer. Ashley has received 93 marks in mathematics and 71 marks in English. So that's that question fully wrapped up with a word answer. So this is really clear communication. I know that this 93, it means my mathematics marks. This 71 means my English marks. Right, that wraps up this lesson. So I want you guys to complete the worksheet, simultaneous equations in context. It's a bunch of word problems and you're going to have to make simultaneous equations and then solve those equations to solve your answer. So remember to answer those in words. So we're not answering with coordinates if we're given a word problem. So if you get stuck using one method, try another method. So if you're scratching your head, not sure how to use the substitution method, try the elimination method or vice versa. And if you actually feel like it, you could graph those two functions and find the coordinates. Not always practical, but that is one way to solve it. You know, once again, email me or post on the OneNote if you have any questions. And make sure you use Microsoft Teams as well if you want to see how I do a question or ask others how they did in the question. So this has been a pretty good 2 weeks. I think you guys have definitely got some work ahead of you and good luck. You guys can do it.